welcome back once again to the Imaginary Gallery. It is TJ, your host. We are on the second video involving the abusive person and addiction. In the previous episode, we discussed how partner abuse and addiction are similar. Well, now we go to how partner abuse and addiction are different. Lundy Bancroft's book, Why Does He Do That Inside the Minds of Angry and Controlling Men, is the reference point. This is mainly written regarding abusive men, as if men are the only ones who abuse. We already know that isn't the truth. Bancroft tells us the ways in which partner abuse differs from addiction includes the following. Partner abusers do not hit rock bottom. Substance abuse is self-destructive. Over time, the person addicted becomes increasingly unmanageable. He tends to have difficulty keeping jobs. Finances fall into disarray, partly due to the expensive habit. Friendships decline. A person may alienate himself from relatives unless they're also abusers of substances. This downward spiral can lead this addict to reach a nadir where his life is finally such a mess that he can no longer deny the problem. Alcoholics commonly attribute their entrance into recovery to such an experience. I hit bottom. Partner abuse, on the other hand, is not especially self-destructive, although it's profoundly destructive to other people. A man can abuse a lady for 20 or 30 years and still have a wonderful, stable job and a professional career, keep his finances in good order, and remain popular with friends and relatives. Self-esteem and ability to sleep at night, self-confidence, and physical health are all good, just like they would be for a non-abusive person. One of the great sources of pain in the life of an abused lady is her sense of isolation and frustration because no one else seems to notice that anything is wrong with the partner. Her life and her freedom may slide down the drain because of what he's doing to her mind, but his life is just perfect. It is true that partner abusers lose intimacy because of their abuse, since true closeness and abuse are mutually exclusive. However, they rarely experience this as much of a loss. Either they find their intimacy through close emotional connections with friends or relatives, as many of Bancroft's clients will do, or they're people for whom intimacy is neither a goal nor any kind of value, which can be the truth with a non-abusive person as well. You can't miss something that you don't want to have or that you're not interested in having. In recent years, physically assaultive abusive people are, for the first time, hitting bottom in one sense, he says. They are occasionally experiencing unpleasant legal consequences for their actions. Unfortunately, most court systems still treat domestic abusers with special leniency, so the bottom seems to be like it goes a long way down. Short-term versus long-term rewards. Substance abuse can be highly rewarding. It brings quick pleasure, easy relief from emotional distress. It also provides camaraderie through entrance into a circle of friends whose social life revolves around seeking and enjoying this type of intoxication. However, these rewards are usually short-lived. Over time, substance abuse causes the addict emotional distresses that are as great as the ones that he or she was attempting to run from or escape from in the first place. Friendships based on substance abuse are shallow and prone to tensions and ruptures due to financial resentment, paranoia, mutual irresponsibility, and a lot of other factors. An alcoholic tends to drink more and more not because of how well it's working, but because of how poorly it's working. Partner abuse, on the other hand, can be rewarding to the abuser for many years, and potentially for a lifetime. It is impossible to get partner abusers to change by trying to persuade them to look at the damage that they've done to their own lives, as Bancroft says he tried to do in early years as an abuse counselor, because these people perceive the gains as vastly outweighing the losses. Change in an abuser is primarily brought about when society succeeds in pressuring him into caring about the damage that he has done to others. This also ties into my video I did long ago about the predator and how you can try to appeal to the abusive person, usually because you were indoctrinated in the beginning and brainwashed into thinking it's a really nice person because of the way it rescued you if you were in trouble or distress at the beginning, but then later they become something different and you try to tell them, I can't believe you've done this, like it's some big deal, which it is to you, and you're thinking they understand what you're saying because they pretended to be like you in the first place, but that's what they did. They pretended. So they just said what they had to say to get what they wanted out of you, and now that you're hooked in, you're seeing that mask slip off and the monster underneath. So I mentioned in the other video about that predator, like if you watch a lion out in the wild and there's a little bunny rabbit and that lion sneaks up on it, chews it up and eats it, if the lion could talk and you pulled it aside and said, "Lion, how terrible of you. You killed that poor bunny. How could you do that? That poor bunny's never going to have a birthday again. That poor bunny's parents are going to miss it," and all that stuff. Do you think that that lion creature is going to care? No, it's a predator. That's its prey. That's what they do. Well, that's how you have to think of these people, at least the cluster B people. They're very abusive, very selfish, and trying to tell them what they've done is just like trying to tell that predator out in the woods. Doesn't do any good. Societal approval for partner abuse is greater. Social supports for both substance abuse and partner abuse are regrettably high, but they are even stronger for the latter. Substance abuse receives the active promotion of alcohol advertising, which domestic abuse does not. But there is an area of writers and organizations that actively opposes improvements in legal and institutional responses to domestic abuse, whereas there are no parallel organized efforts to defend substance abuse. TV, movie, music videos, and other cultural outlets are drenched with messages condoning partner abuse. Because of these critical distinctions between partner abuse and addiction, programs and books that have attempted to address abusiveness based on an addiction model have failed horribly. Batterers Anonymous groups, for example, are notorious for acting as a support circle for abusers' excuses and justifications, rather than launching paths for change. Recovery programs generally address few or none of the attitudes and habits that can cause partner abuse.
I am the Narcopath.
So I've got a few confessions for you. I know one of the questions you used to ask, which I could never tell you the answer, but you asked, why did I even choose you? Why did I chase after you? Remember when we met? You had just gotten through with another narcopath, but she wasn't as good as me, regardless. You were heartbroken and I could see it. The narcopaths of the world can spot each other's prey, whether it's current or past prey. I saw past prey all over you. So when I flirted with you and leaned over so you could see my wares, I knew it would catch your attention. Of course, which it did. And everybody else there in that rock and roll nightclub. When we finally got a chance to talk, and you told me about how you weren't really interested in anybody seriously, that confirmed what I already thought. And I acted innocent, got you to talk a little more, and found out, bingo, you had just been hurt and discarded by one of me. You, with your empathetic personality, couldn't fathom how someone like me, which you didn't find out till much later, of course, would pursue you, knowing what you just been through. Well, honey, that's you. I ain't got empathy. I saw you as a perfect target. And I'll let you in on another secret, because I am giving confession. Face it, I'm a coward. That's right, I said it, I am a coward. What do I mean by that? Well, in our school, if you notice, there were a lot of hot guys there to choose from. And brings us back to why did I choose you over them? Picture if I was a wolf out in the wild. I might look up and see some birds flying around, swooping left and right, and I could focus my attention at trying to hide in just the right strategic place to catch one of them and eat him. Or how about a bird whose wing has been injured, and that bird is hobbling along on the ground in the grass? Well, honey, that's the kind of thing I would go after. You were in such a devastated state when I first met you. You were perfect, just like that wounded bird who couldn't fly, couldn't do anything on its own. And I swooped down next to it and said, I don't care that you can't fly. That's not your fault, whatever I might say. I don't want to have to work for it. I saw those eagles soaring left and right, and I didn't want to have to try to deal with them and battle with their families and their other partners and all their egocentricities. I wanted something easy, and that's what you were. You represented easy because you were wounded. Wounded are easier for me to dominate, so I'm a coward. Tough. You fell for it. It's your fault.
I also remember on one of our first dates.
I pointed out one of my exes and told you he was abusive. And then you wondered why, after I discarded you, after several months, that I would actually check up with him? Make you think something was fishy? Well, if you must know, I was the one who abused him. But I couldn't tell you that, so I just simply reversed the story so I'd look better. And I told you that he abused me. It worked. It made you hate him, made you distrust him, and that's exactly what I needed, because the fact was, honey, every time you weren't available, I was actually with him, and he was putting it in my Virginia again. I couldn't tell you any of this because that wouldn't look good for your conservative nature. I had to keep it a secret and tell you he was so abusive and horrible, but then later move in with him, so I knew what I was doing. I just didn't want you to know, because if you knew, you probably wouldn't have gone on dates with me to begin with.
Another reason I couldn't tell you was because I was afraid if you knew the true nature of my relationship with my ex, which really wasn't an ex at all, may not give me any more of what I want. So I couldn't risk that. I did what I had to do and told you that he was abusive and that nothing's going on between us. You did not need to know the truth.
I was too loose for you. That wouldn't look good for your family, because I wanted to get their money, too. I knew they had some. All I had to do, I figured, was show my charm, and once they fell for me, take them for all they're worth. I would have gotten away with it, too, if it wasn't for you meddling kid. I am the Narcopath, and I know that you dream about my private parts. How would you like a chance to enter those private parts? Stay tuned, and I'll tell you how you can do just that. It'll be worth it.